Bless you all for being here, and thanks for having me. This is such a joy and honor, I cannot tell you. I just want to acknowledge the heavenly host, that cloud of witnesses that is also with us here today. That we are constantly in the presence of angels. There is a guardian angel for every soul in this room, and so I salute your guardian angels. And I thank them for their presence here, for guiding you here. Thank you. For guiding you here, protecting you, for praying for you at every moment so that you can be open to whatever God is saying to you in his walk with you today. So I thank you, beautiful angels, for your faithfulness, your commitment, for beholding the face of God in heaven, while you love us here in time. Just an incredible thought to have each day. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We are never alone. Amen? Amen. Now, I have a lot of papers here. I'll be going on and off these notes because I just need something to guide me so I don't talk to you for 3 hours instead of 40 minutes. So this is an act of mercy right here. I just want you to be aware. Okay. My book, True Radiance, Finding Grace in the Second Half of Life, was written with women in mind, but about 90% of the concepts, which are all about radiance and beauty of soul, are applicable to all of us throughout our lives. I've even found that young women and young men within my family are interested in the concept of how our connection with Jesus Christ over time, that plodding, kind of day by day, praying a little bit, moving forward, falling back, falling into God's arms again, his mercy, and continuing on again, how our souls become more and more beautiful. That beauty is not limited to women or men. It is just the way we are. We image Christ. It's an incredible thing to ponder, that when we imitate him, we are the most ourselves. When we imitate Jesus Christ, we are the most ourselves, made in his image and his likeness. And so that radiance of soul that St. Faustina talked about when her guardian angel gave her a glimpse of heaven and a glimpse of purgatory, and she could see the relative radiance of various souls. Just going to point this up a little because I'm really tall. And so there's that sense of how much of the love of God is unleashed in a person's soul. That is authentic beauty. That is not only enduring beauty, that is growing, increasing beauty, because God is generous, and every step toward him is a step toward ultimate beauty, good, truth, goodness, truth, purity, all of that holiness that our souls crave. Anyway, so that is the concept, that as we mature in spiritual life, we become more radiant. But at the same time, as we all know, I'm going to be 58 this year, and I wrote this book when I was going through the menopause thing, and I don't want to embarrass all the men here. Poor things, I won't put you through any details. But life changes very dramatically when that happens, and so what I wanted to do when I was interviewing the women at all these various ages was find out from them what is happening in your spiritual life as you mature. But also years ago I did a project where I interviewed a lot of my kind of heroes, women and men, who I saw as more advanced in the spiritual life, and I asked them how they prepared their hearts to hear God, what their conversation with God was like. And for women, it seems to happen more in real time. Now, this is not across the board, but a lot of women sort of sense that conversation in an ongoing way, day by day. But most of the men, and you tell me if this resonates for you, saw God's hand in retrospect more. They could see that the lost job opportunity or the injury or the meeting somebody at a certain time, they could see the pattern of God's assistance throughout their life in that way. Does any of you men resonate with that? Yeah, very interesting how different our spirituality is, right? But that conversation with God that is so precious is ongoing, and so I like to think about the changes in our bodies too as being part of that conversation. Because as the Catechism tells us, we are a unity of body and soul. That's one nature. And we will be reunited with our bodies again someday in heaven, in our glorified bodies. That's going to be awesome. We're going to be incredibly beautiful and strong. We will be probably, obviously our focus and our delight will be in the Lord. But we will be amazed by each other, too, I think. That's just my own thought on that. But now we live in a society that is so obsessed with youth, as the Archbishop was just talking about, that they can't see beyond a very particular little part of life when every moment has meaning, every moment has purpose. Our very bodies have meaning. St. John Paul II's theology of the body unpacked the Church's understanding, that biblically rooted understanding of how our bodies tell us a lot about God's plan for us. We were made for self-donation. Our bodies have meaning. And when Jesus Christ was incarnated and entered into time, he sanctified time. And when he took on our flesh, he sanctified that too. And so there's no way that when God sanctified time, he stopped sanctifying it past a certain age. There is meaning and purpose in every moment of our lives. If God woke me up this morning, I know he has a plan for me today. I remember when I was trying to relate all the physical stuff in my body that was suddenly so dramatically changing to my conversation with God, I was having hot flashes. Really bad. So I kept saying, okay, Lord, what are you saying to me? Because I had suffered from infertility for many years, and I finally had my one daughter when I was almost 40. Just the most wonderful blessing of my life. But to me, when I was feeling this overheating, this just incredible heat in my body, it felt like I was burning off what was left of my meager fertility. And that was a depressing thought. And I said, Lord, I know you're never depressing, so that can't be what this means. And I was asking him in prayer for weeks and pondering it as I was going through them over and over again. I said, come on, Lord, what is it? What is it? And so one day I was sitting at Mass and kind of looking up at this beautiful crucifix over the altar. And I said, okay, Lord. I was having a wicked hot flash and flapping my jacket trying to cool off. I said, okay, what are you saying to me, Lord? And there in front of the tabernacle, suddenly my mind was filled with beautiful images of fire. God is a consuming fire, the Bible tells us. There are so many beautiful images of his love throughout the Bible, using the images of fire. And suddenly I had some of those images in my mind. I saw Moses removing his shoes because he was standing on holy ground and approaching, excuse me, I get very emotional. I cry at commercials too. Removing his shoes and approaching the burning bush because God was speaking to him out of the fire. And I saw the pillar of fire leading the Israelites safely through the dark and the dangers of the desert. And I saw the tongues of fire falling on the heads of the apostles. And I suddenly thought, that's it, Lord. It's your fiery love. It's burning up inside me. And you are speaking to me out of that fire, leading me and anointing this time of my life to a new purpose. But Revelation said, I make all things new, Jesus is the one that makes all things new at any time. And to doubt that is to just doubt his divinity. There is nothing beyond his power to transform and to bring new life to. And yet we live in this world that tells us that life is only something you can buy, wear, put on, do something to change your face or dye your hair or whatever it is. And I believe you, I have nothing against the beauty industry. That's a lot of fun. But it can make us feel like happiness is something that has to be purchased. That happiness doesn't come from what we know as Christians, service. Self-sacrifice is the fast lane to joy. It has nothing to do with our wallets unless we're giving with it or bringing joy to someone with it, right? So all of those good things that society twists, they give us an image of ourselves that is false and unachievable. It even affects young people. Girls have eating disorders and wear corsets and things like that when they're very young now. It's quite sad. But they're telling us also, men and women, that as we get older, we're less relevant. I love what the Archbishop was saying about lead us, that wisdom. There's so much wisdom in this room right now. And it doesn't matter if you just came to the faith yesterday or you came to it when you were a baby. God has been doing a work in you, and nothing is wasted. I'm a big time waster. I'm a procrastinator and extremely disorganized. And I reached a point in my life where it was either despair of myself or let God tell me what was going on. And I started to realize that all the experiences and the failures of my past, that I had wasted a tremendous amount of time, but that God had not wasted any of it. He made everything in my life bear fruit. And all I had to do, and this is the hardest thing of all, was fall into his arms and let him redeem it all. My friend Bernadette is in her 70s, and her son, as a young man, was in a terrible car accident and was brain damaged. And she'd been taking care of her sick husband for a long time. She had enough burdens, and she cried out to the Lord. She was going through all the stages of grief, and at this point she was extremely angry with God. And she was in front of the tabernacle, and she was so mad at him for not healing John's brain. And she knew that if she cried out to him, he would speak to her, and he did. And she felt him saying, Bernadette, the past is mine, it belongs to me, and I have redeemed it. And the future, it's not here yet, but that belongs to me too. I would like you to just stay here with me in the present moment. I am loving you like a river. I will not leave you. And at that moment, her peace was restored. And she said the 12 years she cared for John at home were some of the most joyful of her life. That peace she found in front of the tabernacle, laying her cares down and giving her honest anger to the Lord, resulted in an outpouring of graces. And of course, she's part of a prayer community and Mass and Rosary and praying in a very heartfelt way to the Lord every day. And that's the way you get that kind of confidence and strength. It doesn't come any other way. And as we reach a certain point in life, it becomes not necessarily easier, but in a way more natural for us to start focusing on what's next. We know that our bodies are declining. Maybe our minds are declining even. But because our focus now, our priorities are starting to shift towards heaven, that's one of the reasons the second half of our lives is a time where we are so valuable to the young. Our priorities are now more and more in the right place. Our eyes are on heaven. And so all of our relationships then happen in the context of that. They're eternal relationships. For better or worse, our souls are immortal. And so the hope is that even though I can't get to know you all personally here, that we will spend all of eternity together, and we will know each other. Isn't that incredible to think about? And so when I look at my friendships, I have to think to myself, okay, my friend, makes me feel happy, kind of compliments me, makes me feel stronger. I can laugh with her, cry with her, pray the rosary together sometimes. But what is the real purpose of this friendship? Why did God make her? Why did God make me? He saw us before he made us and knew the part we would play in his plan of salvation. And so when we reverence the divine spark in each other in all of our relationships, when our focus is heaven, suddenly that person, with warts and all, is part of God's plan, is holy before our eyes. And that's a kind of sight. As our physical vision is failing, that is a kind of spiritual sight that is only gained after long relationship with God. You start to see those things. You start to see what's really been right in front of us all along. That we have had one foot in heaven all along. It's where we come from and it's where we're going. And seeing everything in that context is true, is the truth. Is the truth. I love to think about, I'm a homeschooling mom. My daughter's getting ready to go off to college. Boo-hoo. But we talk a lot about being lifelong learners, about making learning an adventure, exciting, something that a young person will want to do their whole lives long. We're not finishing the job, we're just kicking it off. And that's how we are in the spiritual life as well. We're hopefully growing up into the presence of God. It's kind of a nice image for me to think of being tall. I always had a lot of jokes about being tall because I got made fun of so much as an adolescent, How's the weather up there? When you jump rope, do you get nosebleeds? You're so tall and skinny, if you stuck out your tongue, you'd look like a zipper. Actually, most of those jokes were mine. I had to beat them to the punch. But I love that image of spiritually kind of growing taller, growing up into the presence of God. And that's a releasing, that's a letting go. That whole thing with the hot flashes led to my saying to God with each new change in my body, well, what does this mean? What are you saying to me now? So one morning I was probably having bad allergies or hadn't eaten the right foods and wasn't drinking enough water. And I woke up one morning and my wrinkles wrinkles were really bad, and the sagging was a little worse than usual, and I was looked in the mirror and I just said, all right, Lord, what are you saying now? And I didn't really expect a big whomping response, but suddenly I knew exactly what he was saying to me. And I felt that he was saying to me, look at your face like a clock, and it's ticking down. Your time is preciously limited. So what are you going to do with it, procrastinator? He knows just how to make me laugh and cry at the same time. But then when I was thinking too about like thinning bones, this feeling that gravity is having less and less a hold on my body. And if my skin is loosening, maybe that's because I'm going to leave it behind in a bit. And I don't know when. I'm going to be 58 this year. I don't know when God will call me home. But if it's making it a little easier for me to leave my body, then so be it. and I just want to thank you all, by the way, for coming and sitting on folding chairs today. Please offer it up. And if anybody needs to get up and stretch at any time, please do that, because we don't want you in pain. And these are actually quite nice folding chairs, but they're a bit penitential in the long haul. My dad, I remember at one time, he passed a few years ago, what a very, very sweet man, had a naval career and in retirement just did so much good for others and was a catechist for a long time. But I remember him saying to me once that, and where is the clock? Oh, there, I have to know if I'm running over. Remember he said to me once that as women get older, they get stronger. When as the men get older, they get weaker. And I did not agree with him at all. But he was seeing my mother getting more assertive and taking charge of things and doing so much in the parish, and he really admired her for that. He was doing a lot of those things too, but he was becoming more flexible, more accommodating, more gentle in his responses. Those furious years of career and the pressures, you know, it's not easy to be flexible and accommodating during those years, but in retirement he was a much more gentle man. And I remember he said that at his 50th wedding anniversary party, he said that his mantra now was, where are we going and what do I wear? He figured out how to get along with my mother. But what he had was a beautiful strength. It was called humility. He was willing to give ground. And it made for a very happy retirement with my parents. They were such, oh, my parents were great. It was just, my mom's still with us, but just a beautiful relationship. And it wasn't without conflict, but it was beautiful, and I'm very proud of them. But humility, I know we hear about humility all the time, but every once in a while I hear a quote or an insight about humility that really helps me to dig back into it again. So I'm hopeful that a couple of things I'm just going to throw out there might be helpful to you too. Because to be humble is to be strong and beautiful. To be humble is to be strong and beautiful. To be humble is to have the door open to God, open to the adventure of your life. Mother Teresa said, humility is the mother of all virtues, purity, charity, obedience, the mother of all virtues. St. Jose Maria Escriva said, humility is to the various virtues what the chain is in a rosary. Take away the chain and the beads are scattered. Remove humility and all virtues vanish. When we lean into humility, we find freedom. We learn to trust God with our lives. And again, reset our priorities. The world is telling us our priorities are others other than heaven. And so as we let go of that, as we yield, as we learn to get along with God as we get older, and that really is hard, isn't it? Just getting along with God. All right. The last bunch of times I said no to you, I regretted it. The last bunch of times I said yes, I saw how you worked miracles of grace in my life and surprised me, and very often brought those graces through people I didn't expect them from, humbly. So I'm going to let go and learn to get along with you, Lord. There are so many paradoxes in the Christian life, such beautiful mysteries. They're seeming contradictions, like to die is to live, right? To die to the world, to die to sin is to live in Jesus Christ. These beautiful paradoxes. And it's possible for us to grow so mature in the spiritual life that we become like little children. St. Therese said she could never be a saint on her own, St. Therese of Lisieux. And so she said to Jesus, I'm just going to stand at the bottom of this stairway to heaven, the stairway of sanctity, and I'm just going to wait. I'm little. My foot can't reach up to the first step, so I'm going to wait for you to come down and carry me up. That's trust. That is trust. Our heroes in the Bible all had a radical trust in God. I love the Old Testament. I love that, just incredible miracles. But what we have to remember about those miracles is that Moses did not lead the Israelites through the Red Sea because they were good swimmers. And Daniel did not escape the lion's den because he was good with animals. It's nothing the world would have told him was going to work. Our heroes are heroes because of their radical trust in God. And I remember one Christmas, just a few years ago, I actually was writing this book. I asked God for just one gift. I said, I want that kind of radical trust. I want to be like them. I want to be able to fling myself into your arms. And I was traveling like this for a conference, and I was in a hotel room once late at night, and when I travel, I wear these I bring these really lightweight pajamas, but they don't, sorry guys, I won't embarrass you, they don't hide much, and I had like the roll around the middle, and I was tired, I looked awful, and I just caught sight of myself in the mirror and started crying. I gotta go. It's never gonna be any better. It's just getting worse and worse. I was going through that transition. I'm still holding on to that youthful vanity, worrying about what people thought about the way I looked. But in that moment of letting go and kind of leaning into God with that moment of pain, I felt Him approach you. You know, that sense that, oh, I'm listening to you. You just have that feeling. And I felt, and God suddenly put images in my mind again, and I saw just little flickers of images from my life. I saw the way God saw me just for a moment. By His grace, little acts of mercy, forgiveness, tenderness, service, the stuff that goes on in family life when nobody's looking and it's not in the news, but it's incredibly beautiful. And when we treat each other that way, little acts of heroism result. Just in a flash, He showed me that that's what He saw when He looked at me. That in spite of all my failings and my chronic sins, that's how He saw me. And that I was not less beautiful, but increasingly beautiful. That was such a turning point for me. Just to understand that what is authentically beautiful is of God. Nobody else can tell you whether you're beautiful or not, or whether you are strong or not. You are strong in the Lord. Blessed be the Lord. Just going to scan over, because I'm jumping around like a crazy person here, not following my plan at all. Oh, I know what I wanted to say, what I was starting to segue towards, and then my forgetfulness. I've been forgetful all my life, by the way, so I expect that in my senior years, it'll be a graceful transition. But I'd just like to take a few minutes to unpack a couple of ideas about the church's understanding of what beauty is. And beauty, obviously, is the presence of God in the world. He speaks through beauty, through the natural wonders of the world, through a thunderstorm, through a flock of geese suddenly startled into flight. There was a beautiful little toddler at Mass today, cooing and talking and chattering, and Mother Teresa said that babies are the glory of God present in the world. There's so much beauty around us, speaking the presence of God into our lives. And so the church is really wise about this and uses our senses in the liturgy, right? We have to participate physically. It keeps waking us up from, I'm often caught, when we have to suddenly kneel or stand. Whoop, I was making my grocery list again. So to me, it's very helpful that my Protestant friend used to call it Catholic calisthenics. She married a Catholic man and she thought it was hilarious. Sit, stand, kneel. And, but that's very helpful to me because I'm distractible. And when the whole congregation rises or falls to their knees because we're about to have a consecration, or to say, Lord, have mercy. It's just beautiful. It's the use of our senses. So all of those senses are part of our conversation with God too. When I heard some speaker call it smells and bells. We've got incense and bells and music and architecture and stained glass and the beautiful vestments of the priest. It's not a lot of just kind of superficial finery. Some Protestant fundamentalists really think that there's a kind of fake vanity or something, a distraction from Jesus with all of that. That's not true. He gave us an appreciation for beauty so that he could touch our souls when nothing else can, sometimes through our senses. Sometimes it's the beauty of a hymn. There are certain hymns I can't sing without crying, right? And so that is a way that we are able to access what's inaccessible otherwise. We access what's transcendent and kind of out of our reach. We may not be able to think it through and talk about it logically, but man, that moment of the consecration when the priest lifts the host, Jesus chose to give us a visible sign of his presence with us, right? The Blessed Sacrament. And look, here's another thing. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but we talk about beauty a lot, especially as women. The women here, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of where we live. We're indoctrinated into thinking it's all, kind of all we've got. And when that goes, we're sidelined, which I think is diabolical. I think, and one of the things when Archbishop was talking is it occurred to me that we're being silenced at the best time of our lives. That society making us feel like we're less relevant and less interesting and don't bother us and don't you dare be a burden. Are you kidding me? My 94-year-old mother-in-law, who I adore, who is one of my best friends, is about to move in with us. And it is horrible for her. Giving up her home of 50 years because she can't take care of herself anymore. She's a bright, lovely, sociable person who did not mean to be disabled at this time in her life. She wanted to keep going. But this is a path of sanctification for us. This is going to help us draw closer to God, combining our households like this, suffering together and rejoicing together and building happy memories again and starting over and being homesick for our former homes. And you know what I mean? That loss, the joy, the sorrow, all mingling together, that has incredible meaning. She's not a burden to us. She's not just a spiritual opportunity either, but she is. She's a huge spiritual opportunity. So if you are starting to need care, please understand that if you are willing, in your inability to do certain things now, you are blessing the other person. It is a great gift to be able to serve. And it takes a lot of courage to accept help, especially to accept it gracefully and cheerfully. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be real about our feelings. It's okay with me when my mother-in-law cries because she's leaving the home she shared with her husband. That's very sad. But on the other hand, she's got guts. She's willing to start a new chapter in her life, and I know God will bless that. I know God will bless it beyond our wildest imaginings if we trust Him. Anyway. So the church's ideas of beauty. Just share a couple of things with you. There it is. Oh well. John Paul II said in 1999, where are you, John Paul? I can't quote exactly the lines, so let me get that quote. Oh, you hiding from me? Oh well. Basically, no, I don't want to say basically. Hang on one second. I got it, it's coming. There it is. In his letter to artists in 1999, the year my daughter was born, this great blessing, he wrote that beauty is a key to the mystery and a call to transcendence. You hear that? Beauty is a call. It's a reminder of God. John O'Donohue says in his book, Beauty, the Invisible Embrace, when we experience beauty, we feel called. The beautiful stirs passion and urgency in us and calls forth from aloneness into the warmth and wonder of an eternal embrace. It unites us again with the neglected and forgotten grandeur of life. Some of us listen to symphonies, go to art galleries, or watch incredible athletes play sports. That can be incredibly beautiful too. What's happening tomorrow? But I mean, really, the dedication, the refinement of skill, there is such beauty around us. When we respond with joy to the call of beauty, because in an instant it can awaken under the layers of the heart of forgotten brightness, beauty stirs something in us. It stirs us. My friend Sarah said that her grandmother lived with her for a couple of years when she was dying of cancer. And one night she she could hear her grandmother crying out in the night, and she thought, oh boy, she's probably really in pain, and she tiptoed to the door, and she was just kind of listening in, not sure what to do. And she realized her grandmother was not calling out because she was in pain. She was calling out, offering her pain for everyone she loved. And in that moment, Sarah began to see the body as a clay pot. And then the radiance of the soul is in that clay pot. But as the pot gets older and more frail and starts to crack, and little pieces and chunks start to fall out of it, that radiance starts to shine out. Through our pain, offered in love. Through Jesus Christ is building his kingdom on this earth through our little teeny tiny sacrifices. Little gestures of love, mercy, forgiveness. If we're holding on to pain, a lot of the reason I'm standing before you now is pain. The people who run like lovers every day to the Eucharist. I guarantee you, just about everybody so in love with Jesus Christ has a story of suffering, and that suffering was a grace. It helped them to see how very small they were and how in need of Jesus Christ. And when we feel overlooked, invisible, when we feel disregarded, when younger people are not interested in what we have to say, when the media makes us feel like we're disposable, remember that Jesus chose to be pretty much invisible in the Eucharist. People pass by our churches all the time having no idea who is within, who's there waiting, calling to their souls. They don't know. And we won't know until we get to heaven just how much of an impact that presence in our society has. I'll bet there are miracles going on all around us as a result of that presence. But Jesus chose invisibility, essentially, even when he's displayed in the monstrance, and again, beauty, helping us to access the reality of what we're looking at, beautiful monstrance. That just helps us with our senses to key in. But we share in his invisibility, we image him. Sometimes just our presence, our prayerful presence, is what God asks for. We're not always going to be able to tell everybody with our mouths what it is to love Jesus Christ. And I know my friend Monsignor Fink brings communion to some elderly nuns in a nursing home on Long Island. And he says there's one who's just such a saint. And she was in service all her life, and now she's in a wheelchair. And she can't physically do anything for anybody anymore. But she prays, and her vocation lives on. Yes, it's hard for her. It's sad for her. But there's a joy, there's a faith there, because she knows that her vocation is not over yet. She's persevering to the end. And our quick fix, buy this, buy that, let us fix you, you're a bunch of fixer-uppers, we've got products to sell you. Society is just wrong. They're wrong. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. My way of adapting that lyric to myself is, was blind, but now my sight is improving. I don't know it all. Church has a lot to offer me, though. A lot I can keep studying. And when we study and pray and keep learning our faith, God provides opportunities for us to share that. When we fast, when we pray our rosaries, when we listen to a Lighthouse CD in the car, or go to a conference, we're opening our souls to his teaching. Jesus didn't just say to his apostles, you're basically good people. Go out and witness to the world. He took great care to teach them. And so we need to allow him to continue teaching us too. We need to be lifelong learners. And I'm sure that there are a lot of you here already doing that. You wouldn't be here. I'm really speaking to, the cream of the crop. Whenever you go to a conference, these are the people who sacrifice to be here and are willing to sit in a folding chair. So it hurts. But that constant growth. And so what Sarah said is that, and Sarah's also a biblical scholar, by the way. She's just someone I've gotten to know a little bit, and I interviewed her for my book. But she reminded me, she said, God never changes. I may change, my circumstances may change, A couple of the women in my family were abandoned with children. Their vocations did not stop. They still loved and prayed for their abandoning spouses. Of course, I have a lot of really beautiful and faithful men in my family too, thanks be to God. But things happen. God does not forget us. And we have to remember too, this is my biggest fault, not just to talk to God, but to listen. I have a hard time doing that. I think it's just self-importance. Oh, I have to get everything done. Everybody needs me. I gotta keep moving. Time's ticking down, right? And I forget to just sit in his presence, just pray, just open the scriptures and let him talk to me. And let the Holy Spirit move me, and then be willing to act on it. Feeling tired, run down, discouraged? Feel like Jesus hasn't been answering your prayers lately? Well, how would you like to get back in the game so fast it'll make the enemy's head spin? Get some religion, get your groove back. Let the light of the Lord shine right through you and out to the world. Well, you're in luck, because right now you, my friend, can get back in the race with some sanctifying grace. Discover the elation of reconciliation, free at last, free of charge. At a Catholic parish near you where a priest is waiting to take your call. Get back in the game, get back to confession. Isaiah chapter 40. This is when you're feeling run down and tired, and the weather's too bad to get to confession. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is God from of old, creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow faint or grow weary, and his knowledge is beyond scrutiny. He gives power to the faint, abundant strength to the weak. Though young men faint and grow weary, there's that lack of wisdom, and youths stagger and fall. They that hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on eagle's wings. They will run and not grow weary. Walk and not grow faint. Amen. Thank you very much.